Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Krampus, and welcome back to Total Party Skills. Hit like and subscribe. I watched the first episode of Willow last night, and right before recording this, I listened to a review of that episode by Chris Gore, just to kind of get a sense of what the mainstream take, at least from the right wing camp of nerddom, is going to be having on the whole thing. And once again, I kind of feel like this is kind of starting to show people's hand. There's been a kind of an ongoing poker game. There's been a lot of bluffing going on. People trying to hide their expressions as best they can and try not to give away their tells and all that kind of stuff. But Willow was fine. It was quite enjoyable, actually. I wonder at how long it's been since some of the people reviewing Willow and saying that it's terrible. I wonder how long it's been since they've actually sat down and watched the original movie. I had thrown it on while we had turkey in the oven on Thanksgiving Day just to have something on, knowing that the show is about to come on. So, hey, maybe it'd be a good thing to kind of refresh our minds a little bit about this. The most serious complaints, I guess I can say I've heard so far about the show, is that the writing is kind of geared towards a young adult, mid to late teenager type of people, which is, well, if you go back and watch the original Willow, I wouldn't exactly say that was an adult work of fantasy. It certainly was just serious enough that adults could enjoy it. You take your kid to go see that as a movie, you can actually stay in the theater and watch it and have a good time. You're not going to be bored out of your mind like you're trying to watch some dumb cartoon like the Care Bears movie or the Pokemon movie or something like that. But to pretend that this is some like great epic work of fantasy art on the same level as the Lord of the Rings is just ridiculous. And at least with the complaints about the Rings of Power, there were legitimate issues with the writing and the fact that it was kind of screwing the lore of the book series a little bit here and there. I mean, obviously you're going to adapt anything for television or film. You're not going to get a perfect translation out of the book, but at the same time, it doesn't mean you should just take like all the liberties you want. It's that you shouldn't just have like license to just take the ball and run as far as you want with the damn thing, because you still want it to feel like it's a part of the grander, noble story. You don't want people like, oh, I like the Rings of Power, I'm going to read these books, and then they get to the bibliographies at the end of the books and they start seeing contradictions, and then that changes their ability to watch the show and all that kind of stuff. There was legitimate things to say about the Rings of Power, although some of those complaints were also, like, okay, weird. I thought you wanted people to have original characters instead of doing swapped characters, which Rings of Power was doing. It gave original characters for its diverse cast, but we've already been over that subject. But Willow, on the other hand, there's no great background of lore for Willow. It's not some cherished series of novels that everyone was raised on as kids for generations or anything like that. There were some novels written after the fact by Chris Claremont in the 90s. I'm not even sure if that series got finished, because I only ever got about halfway through the first one before I put it down. In it, like basically most of the cast of the movie was dead. Sorsha and Madmartigan died. Alora Danan grew up to be a bad guy, and it was about Willow going off on a new quest to have to basically face the adult version of this child he went to all this trouble to save. It was kind of reminiscent of Alien 3 in that it kind of undermined all the accomplishments of Aliens. So I never finished those books, and thankfully they don't seem to be the basis from which the show is taking its cues. But that it's skewed for a slightly younger audience is appropriate, because that's what the original movie was. So that they're not breaking anything by doing that. It was already a generic fantasy, so saying that this is just kind of generic fantasy is appropriate. It's generic fantasy. End of story. That's all it's ever was. Like I said, there's no great body of lore. You don't get these expansive, detailed, well thought out world maps. They just mention some memorable sounding names like Galadorn and Tir-Asleen and make reference to characters. That's really what Willow had going for it, is that it was memorable. The characters were memorable. They had memorable names. The locations had memorable names, but there's really little sense of geography and how all these things, rest next to each other on the landscape and stuff. And this show doesn't do anything to make that better. Like it could practically be taking place in the same setting as Shrek. It's just a live action version of that, and that's fine. People like Shrek. Generic fantasy has a place. It's why D&D is so goddamn popular, more so than the Palladium Fantasy, which is more specific in its setting, sort of a thing. The only sense of anything agenda-driven that I've seen, or that I've heard people in particular mention and bring up, is that there's some light lesbianism in the show. And, I remember a period of time when that was like titillating and something like, oh my God, the fuel for fan fiction and young boys' fantasies and all that kind of stuff. The casting is all right. The characters all seem to have their thing going on. Oddly, the thing that Willow reminds me the most of is that Danny McBride movie, Your Highness. It's like if someone were taking a campaign module for D&D, and Your Highness was that campaign module being run with a more kind of body, rowdy group of older gamers who weren't really taking, the material and their time at the table very seriously. They're just having fun, getting a little drunk, making a bunch of dick jokes. Whereas Willow seems to be kind of taking the exact same adventure module, but running it with people who are, actually taking their characters a bit more seriously and, actually wanting to, like, play through the adventure properly. There's romance in it. I don't particularly think the lesbian couple, which is just kind of a blossoming romance as is, outweighs the straight relationships that are also going on and being established. As far as woke material goes, it's pretty minimal. So the fact that people are just kind of riding out in the morning with their videos about how this is woke garbage, just like what are they? Are we really all like in our own little bubble realities where we just don't see things the same at all anymore? It's gonna be continuingly hard to be able to communicate thoughts and ideas when everyone's got all these bias filters on all the time, just scanning things to find something to be wrong with it instead of just taking it at face value. I look forward to watching more episodes of Willow. The bar had been so lowered by people pre-complaining about it, I found it quite satisfying. So, I guess all the negativity at least serves that purpose. But, this is not some, like, beloved, cherished, lore-heavy thing. It's generic fantasy for a younger audience that's written in such a way that an older audience can also enjoy it. It's an all audiences kind of thing, I guess we can say. It's supposed to be family friendly. And if two girls kissing is something that you can't stand as being family friendly, like, I don't even know why you have a Disney Plus subscription in the first place. Shouldn't you have already cut ties with this years ago? It's kind of funny that, they're actually doing something that people have been wheedling about how up till now, like they'll make a point of saying, oh my God, we got a gay couple in Beauty and the Beast live action remake. But then, it's real vague and they have it set up so you can easily edit it out, of the film for the Chinese or Saudi Arabian film market and all that kind of stuff. Here they actually very definitively, here's some main characters who, like to do a little muff diving. Quite frankly, yeah, I mean, if I was, like, still 12, this show would be the shit. And if you're looking through it from a lens of just, like, looking for good TV shows, fantasy TV shows that make a good example of what a D&D type game or story should be like, perfectly fits. Does a better job than Rings of Power. It's one of the better shows I've watched in weeks. So, I'm just a little bewildered by just the instant negativity over it. What were you expecting it to be? Seriously, except the show about a halfling wizard and his plucky group of young adventurers. So yeah, I guess that's really about all I have to say about that. I'll be making an episode 2 review. A few of you will unsubscribe, and a few of you might do the opposite and decide to subscribe. But Jesus Christ, just give the show a fucking chance. Don't go into it looking to be offended by it. Just take it for what it is. It's just a fun adventure romp What more did you want? What more was it supposed to be? Willow was never fucking Shakespeare, for Pete's sakes. So I guess on that note, parting is such sweet sorrow, but you will watch my videos again upon the morrow, and until then, stay waspinated.